August 8, 1963, a quiet railway line in Buckinghamshire, England. In the dead of night, a gang of 15 men waited in the shadows. They were about to pull off the most audacious heist in British history. The target was the Royal Mail travelling post office train running from Glasgow to London. It was known to carry massive amounts of cash, but on this particular night the cargo was far larger than usual. The gang had inside information. A mysterious figure known only as the Ulsterman had provided the exact schedule and details of the cash carriage, noting that the bank holiday weekend would double the haul. Bruce Reynolds, a charming thief and antiques dealer, was the mastermind. He spent months assembling a team of specialists, including track layers, getaway drivers, and muscle. Together, they formed a highly organized crew, determined to bypass the security measures of the British Railways and complete the heist without anyone firing a single shot. The plan was simple, but required absolute precision. They would hijack the railway signalling system at a remote location called Sears Crossing, forcing the train to a halt in the pitch black. To do this, they prepared black paper, leather straps, and battery-powered lights to manually cover the green signals and illuminate the red bulbs on the track. Every man was assigned a specific role, rehearsed down to the second. They wore boiler suits, gloves, and masks to conceal their identities, waiting for the sound of the approaching locomotive. As midnight passed, the mail train sped through the dark countryside, its crew unaware of the ambush waiting ahead in the Buckinghamshire hills. In the engine room, driver Jack Mills monitored the dials. The journey had been routine, but as the train approached Sears Crossing, a bright red light suddenly pierced the dark. Mills applied the brakes, bringing the massive steam diesel hybrid locomotive to a grinding halt. His co-driver, David Whitby, stepped down from the cab to investigate the signal. As Whitby walked along the gravel track toward the signal telephone, he noticed the wires had been cut. Before he could react, hands grabbed him from the darkness. "Don't make a sound," a voice whispered. Whitby was dragged into the bushes and held at threat of violence, while the rest of the gang rushed toward the train cab. Inside the cab, Jack Mills struggled as masked men climbed through the windows. He fought back bravely, but a heavy blow to the head with an iron bar knocked him unconscious. With the train driver subdued and the co-driver captured, the gang moved to the second phase, moving the train to Bridego Bridge, their designated unloading zone. The gang brought their own train driver, an associate known as Peter, but he quickly panicked, unable to operate the complex controls of the diesel locomotive. In a desperate move, they revived a dazed Jack Mills and forced him at knife point to drive the train a mile down the track to the bridge. At Bridego Bridge, a fleet of getaway vehicles, including a military truck and 2 Land Rovers, stood waiting under the cover of the concrete arches. The gang quickly uncoupled the engine and the high-security second carriage, which contained the registered mail bags, leaving the rest of the train crew stranded up the track. Armed with crowbars and axes, the robbers smashed through the windows of the cash carriage, surprising the postal workers inside, who were sorting the mail bags. The postal staff were forced to lie face down on the floor, unable to see the faces of the intruders as the systematic looting of the train began. The heist was a massive physical effort. The robbers formed a human chain, tossing heavy canvas bags down the steep railway embankment to the waiting vehicles below. In total, they transferred 120 mail bags filled with banknotes, working rapidly in the damp night air under the dim glow of torches. The haul was staggering. They had stolen £2.6 million in used banknotes, mostly of small denominations, which would be equivalent to over £60 million today. With the vehicles loaded to the brim, Bruce Reynolds gave the signal to retreat. The entire operation at the bridge had taken less than 30 minutes. They drove in convoy along quiet country lanes, avoiding major roads where police patrols might already be looking for suspicious vehicles. Their destination was Leatherslade Farm, a remote hideout they had purchased weeks earlier, located just 27 miles from the crime scene. There, they celebrated their success, drinking beer and dividing the massive piles of cash into individual shares for each member of the gang. But their celebration would be short-lived. Back at the tracks, the abandoned train crew had freed themselves and alerted the local police. Scotland Yard immediately launched a massive investigation, placing Detective Jack Slipper, later known as Slipper of the Yard, in charge of the hunt. The police broadcast descriptions of the getaway vehicles, forcing the robbers to remain hiding at the farm longer than they had originally planned. As tension grew, the gang decided to split up and flee the country. They paid an accomplice to clean the farm and burn all evidence. However, the cleaner took the money and ran, leaving the hideout completely intact. A few days later, a suspicious neighbor alerted the police to the farm. When forensics teams arrived at Leatherslade Farm, they found a treasure trove of evidence, including fingerprints on a Monopoly board the gang had played with. The fingerprints matched known criminals, giving the police the names and faces of almost the entire gang within a week of the robbery. A nationwide manhunt began. One by one, the robbers were tracked down, arrested, and brought to trial under intense media attention. In 1964, most of the gang received record-breaking sentences of 30 years in prison, reflecting the state's anger at their audacity. But the story didn't end there. Several members, including Ronnie Biggs and Buster Edwards, managed to escape prison and flee to South America. Biggs lived a celebrity lifestyle in Brazil for decades, evading British authorities until his voluntary return in 2001, cementing the heist in popular culture. The Great Train Robbery remains a legendary tale of planning, execution, and ultimate folly, a perfect heist undone by a simple game of Monopoly.